Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Correia.
Hello, American families. Welcome to this week's episode of The Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Correia. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you've come to the right place. We got a great show for you today, and I know that you're going to love it. Today, we have John Correia from Active Self-Protection, and we are going to be talking sassy. We're going to be talking brash and bold, all about attitude. What should be the attitude of the concealed carry holder? John has great insight into that, and we'll be talking about that on segments 2 and 3. What have I been doing today? Oh gosh, my life is like a whirlwind. It's just going by so quickly. I barely have enough time to do the things that I have to do in a day. I seldom get it all done, but I'm not bored. Boy, just this last week, I tested for my yellow belt in Taekwondo. I'm not even sure I shared with you that I'm taking Taekwondo, but I started last month, and I wasn't going to do it, but my son Cedar, the 13-year-old, and Phoenix, the 9-year-old, they wanted to do it, and they wanted to do it with their friends, which means we have to drive close to an hour to get to the dojo so that they can, practice with their friends and study and just socialize, with Taekwondo. And I figured, what the heck? They're homeschooled, they need the social interaction, they need friends, and hey, what do us parents do? We sacrifice. So I figured, worst that can happen is that I hurt myself. So at 61 years old, I am beginning my Taekwondo experience. We all three of us tested last night for, they call it a yellow stripe, I think. And all three of us passed. It was so cute. I wish I could show you the video of my 9-year-old going through his form, his kata. He was really good. We practiced every day for the last week, and I thank my son Cedar, the 13-year-old, because he's been doing this for about 3 or 4 months, and he pretty much taught me how to do it. So it's been a family affair. So we are all 3 yellow striped belts now, and I'm happy about that, and we will go on to bigger and better things, I'm sure. Next week, we're going to have Phoenix and Cedar on the show, and they're going to talk about their testing experience, and Master Cedar will give you all his opinions on the martial arts, I'm sure. All right, you'll notice that the show is late this week. It's about 3 days late. I'm just going to open up with you here. You can tell the difference between people who have been raised with confidence and self-esteem compared to those of us who were not raised to conquer the world. I fall into the latter category. I just finished my 14th book just yesterday. I wrote the last chapter. Today I'm doing some editing and the intro and all that stuff, and it will be out in about 3 weeks. Probably be for sale on Amazon in less time than that. But my first book signing is May 25 with Rick Weist, who wrote Operation Rumination and also I Just Want My Plants. And then the host of Frontlines of Freedom, Colonel Denny Gillum. He wrote a book called The Smiling Ranger. I'm going to be doing a book signing with all 3 of those, plus a lady named Ruth Price, who wrote a book about her Marine Corps hero friend. So That's going to be good. That will be at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range in Dorr, Michigan, May 25 from noon to 3, plus all other kinds of competitions and, barbecue. It's going to be a really good time. But getting back to my original point, nothing scares me more than an empty page. And when it comes to the Home Defense Show, nothing scares me more than an empty file. I've got an Adobe Audition file that I'm filling up right now. I'm at 5 minutes and 28 seconds. But every time I do the show, it scares me. Every time I start writing a new book, it terrifies me. Even though it's the 14th book, even though this is episode 128, it scares me. Because I wasn't raised to be confident, self-assured, high self-esteem, I struggle with that. I've struggled with it my entire life. I have to force myself for every major accomplishment. I just have to do it. And you think, gosh, that's crazy, Skip. Why would you be afraid of an empty page? You've written 14 books. Well, yeah, that's a good point. I shouldn't be, but this is about emotions, right? Emotions sometimes trump intellect. The empty page, the empty file. Geez, I struggle with those. I always win. I always win because I push the manual override button and I say, Skip, in your head, you can do this. You've got God on your side. You're trying to do the right thing. You've done this before. You can do it again. And you know what? Marine Corps training doesn't hurt. It really doesn't hurt. In Marine Corps boot camp, they taught me to do things that I never thought I would ever be able to do. And you build on your successes. The reason I'm telling this story is because some of you might be like that. Some of you might suffer with low self-esteem like I do. Overcome it. Fake it until it's real. Push ahead, forge on, and do the best you can with what you got. I just finished the 14th book. It's called Concealed Carry for Christians. Encouragement for the Armed Christian. We need encouragement. I think this is one of the best books I've ever done. I'm biased, but I'm really proud and happy with this book. That'll be out in a few weeks. That's what I've been up to, getting ready to hunt mushrooms as well. But let's not dawdle, because John Correia is waiting to talk to us. I've got time for one news article, and this one truly fascinated me from foxnews.com. Hero Army vet describes looking in the eyes of California synagogue shooter as he rushed to stop him. Remember last week, that latest California synagogue shooter? Here's the article. The 51-year-old Iraq war veteran fearlessly rushed the California synagogue shooter. He said Tuesday he acted on instinct when he heard gunshots ring out during services at Chabad of Poway on Saturday morning. Oscar Stewart said he had intended to get up and run like the rest of the congregants, but something stopped him. I took maybe 1-2 steps, and I don't know why, I turned around and ran towards the gunfire, he told Fox and Friends. Well, you know what stopped him? The man is a warrior. He's a warrior. He couldn't live with himself if he didn't run towards the shooting. Colonel Dave Grossman, author of On Killing and On Combat, the world's foremost authority on the topic of killology. There are sheep, there are sheepdogs, and there are wolves. Oscar Stewart, Iraq war vet, he is a sheepdog. To run away with the other sheep is not in his nature. He did what was normal for him. He did what made sense to him. This is a fascinating story. Stewart confronted the suspect, who authorities have identified as 19-year-old John T. Butthead, I'm not even going to tell his name, wearing a military-style vest and wielding a semi-automatic rifle. As I ran toward him, I yelled as loud as I could. Every inch of my body mustered this noise, he said on Fox News. That's what we call, in concealed carry, a challenge command. Quote, he looked at me and had a look of fear. He dropped his weapon to his side. He had a tactical sling so it didn't fall to the floor. He turned around and he ran out of the building. Folks, that was a challenge command. That was a good one. These active shooters, they're cowards. They're coming after sheep. When they meet a warrior, they back down. Stewart started chasing him. Quote, I was trained that if a person has a rifle and you are within a certain number of feet, they can't deploy the rifle against you, he said. I kept in pursuit. As soon as the shooter jumped in his car, he raised his rifle. I punched the car as hard as I could, and he put the rifle back down. He challenged the shooter. He challenged the bully. He challenged the coward. Even though the coward was armed with a rifle, he backed down against an unarmed warrior. There are lessons there, folks. There are lessons there. He started the car, and at this moment, I heard in the background, someone said, I have a gun. Clear out. Get back. So he fell back, and Jonathan Morales, a Border Patrol agent, opened up with 5 rounds into the car. But what this guy Stewart did, oh man, that's what heroes are, folks. They run towards the gunshots. And that is just awesome. I feel like the Jewish race is waking up. They're coming into their own. You can't be sheep if the wolves hate you. Anti-Semitism across the world, skyrocketing right now. Now is the time. If you're a Jew, boy, now's the time to get armed, to get trained, to get tough. You've got to take names and kick ass right now, because anti-Semitism is on the rise and people want to kill you. This 51-year-old Iraq war veteran, he's a warrior. And the Home Defense Show, we salute this man. Oscar, you did an awesome job. You can sit by my fire anytime. I will share a foxhole with you any day of the week. I hope you're around when I get in my shooting. All right. Okay, we are out of time. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with John Correia from Active Self-Protection. We're going to be talking about attitude and the concealed carry holder. We're also going to compare Arizona gun laws with Michigan gun laws. Some would say there's no comparison, but we will find out. All right, we got a 2-minute break. While we are away, go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and protect your family from the criminal justice system should you ever have to use a firearm for self-defense. And then go ahead and check out Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Go to centershotgunrange.com. Check out Center Shot, where it's always a perfect 70 degrees. This is Skip Correia on a Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Siege Correia. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Correia. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Correia Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Correia. Would you like to take your tactical and marksmanship training to the next level? If the answer is yes, you need to check out Center Shot Indoor Gun Range just south of Grand Rapids, conveniently located off US 131. Center Shot is one of the most advanced firing ranges in Michigan. Center Shot firing lanes have nearly 100 customizable shooting programs to make you better no matter what your skill level. Our advanced lanes allow a more immersive training experience to enhance your senses. Controlled lighting and target movement mean that you get the best practice and most fun out of Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Memberships are available for as low as $150. Center Shot also offers a 10% discount to U.S. military veterans. So, no matter what the weather, hot, cold, or in between, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range is always a perfect 70 degrees. This is where I train every week, and so should you. Find out more by going to centershotgunrange.com or call them at 616-371-7468. Stay safe, and I'll see you at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range.
This is Colonel Denny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Correia, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. Today we have with us a veteran, a seasoned veteran of the Home Defense Show. We have John Correia from Active Self-Protection. John, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Skip.
Hey, the honor is all here. John, we haven't talked to you in a couple of months, so I know you're incredibly busy. I think you're on the way to the NRA convention, today. Tell us what's been going on with Active Self-Protection.
Well, we've been having a great couple of months. The channels both continue to grow, so both the main and the extra YouTube channel both are doing very, very well. I've been training a lot myself. I have been taking classes like it's my dang job, because now it is. And, just trying to bring people the best information that I possibly can by being as prepared as I can. So I've also personally, been working on my empty-handed skills an awful lot. Got promotion at my martial arts school a couple of weeks ago, and then took up a kind of a new form, a new art to broaden my skill set, and so kind of bringing all that information to Active Self-Protection and having fun doing it.
Well, John, I'm going to look forward to that. You don't know this yet, and in fact, I haven't even announced this to my listeners, but 3 weeks ago, I started taking Taekwondo classes. That's something that I really thought I would never, ever do. But, I'm a dad. I've got 3 little kids, and my 2 sons, I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. They both started taking Taekwondo classes, and they wanted me to do that with them. And I am so weak on my empty-handed skills anyways, so I thought, what the heck. The worst that can happen is I humiliate myself in front of all these people, and I'm doing that quite effectively. So I'm looking forward to it.
I started taking martial arts because my son got me into it as well. He was a real little guy at the time. He at 4 years old, he was like, "Oh, Papa, come on and take karate with me." And I was like, "Son, I'm so busy. I'm going to school full time at the time. I'm working full time. And what about when you get out of school?" "Oh, okay, fine." And I thought I would just do it for a few months to kind of have something in common with him. And here we are 13 years later.
Oh, wow. Well, you said you just got promoted. Did you do a testing or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at our school, we kind of hold senior rank promotions for an annual gathering of all of our kind of related affiliated schools. And so we always say testing is every week in what we do. And so rather than have a big grand test, it's a series of small things to say, are you ready for that next one? And I'm the student of Lawrence Robinson at Attitude First Martial Arts Academy in Phoenix, and very humbled that a couple weeks ago, so it was first weekend in April, he promoted me to second-degree black belt. So that's cool. Now, of course, as Mr. Miyagi say, in Okinawa, belt mean no need rope for keeping up pants, right?
Right.
And no one's going to ask you your belt level if they want to kick your butt. but it's a significant amount of work.
Yeah.
And 13 years, in some places, I always tell people that a belt doesn't really mean anything outside your school. It really is just a measure of your relationship with your instructor. In our world, a second degree took me 13 years of work. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pretty proud of it. And then I immediately then turned around and took that off and put a white belt on. Because at our school, at Attitude First, one of our other teachers, Mr. Josh Stockman, teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I said, okay, so now that I've gone this far in this one, I'm going to go slide over and train with him for a little while and do something new, and I don't have a rank in Jiu-Jitsu at all. And so I'm sitting here today with sore hands, and I'm sore everywhere because I got my tail handed to me for about an hour and 20 minutes of jiu-jitsu last night.
Funny you should mention that, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was concealed carry and the proper attitude, as it relates to ego and, choosing a fight, backing down, all that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, can you compare for me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the discipline that you're now second-degree black belt in?
Well, okay, so the art that I study is a derivative of Kenpo for those who are martial artists. It's known as Umas. Okay, so I would say that the art that I actually have a rank in, the focus is on maneuvering with your feet and defending yourself with your hands. The focus is on being at striking distance, which is very valuable, very good, very useful. Jiu-jitsu, on the other hand, is kind of almost by definition a grappling art, so mostly at a manipulation distance and not a lot of striking. Not that there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, but that generally speaking, you're working on locks, chokes, holds, positional dominance, those kind of things at a grappling distance. Now, there's some of that standing, mostly on the ground. Mm-hmm. So they are very complementary because they focus on different phases of a physical confrontation. And of course, given that my world and my kind of focus is on tool use, firearms, pepper spray, knives, those kind of things, then I kind of bring that to the discussion as well. So it's a lot of fun that it is an area now where I haven't done a lot of training, some, but not a lot. And just being a beginner again and having a bunch of guys that, once again, I am not nearly the most knowledgeable person in the room, which is fun.
Well, John, I don't know it's fun for me. I'm having to transition from, being like the instructor to being, they line up everybody by ranks and there's like 30 people in this dojo. And the lower ranks are all in the back, and so so I'm in the back and the very last row, and there's a bunch of little smurfs around me, little midgets, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And I'm finding it, on the one hand, it's very humbling, okay? On the other hand, I don't feel a lot of pressure to perform because for the first time, I'm not expected to know anything, and I'm living up to that quite well. So it's humbling, but I'm learning. I'm finding that I'm not very flexible at all, and at 61 years of age, I'm probably not a lot of us who are flexible. But they asked me, "What do you hope to get out of this?" And my answer was, "I'd like to go home." Without any major injuries. and so
That's
far,
a good goal.
Well, yeah, so far it's okay. I just want to, keep my weight down. I want to get some flexibility, get some extra strength and, just some other things like that. But, when we talk about, proper attitude, by the way, John, I want to thank you very much for, writing an endorsement of my book, Concealed Carry for Christians. That's coming out in a few weeks here, and you were kind enough to read that and write an endorsement. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, one of the things that I just finished the chapter this morning called The Problem of Ego. And it's all it's all based around, concealed carry holders, people who are protecting themselves, and how ego enters in. Can you talk about that for a few minutes? How do you see ego affecting concealed carry people, as you view it?
Especially online. There are folks who seem to be itching for a fight. They are excited because they carry a firearm to have somebody challenge them. Mm-hmm. And of course, I know that you kind of, ascribe to the same philosophy I do, Skip, which is that if you're a self-defender, ego has no place in self-defense. Now, I mean, I say that with a slight caveat because it does have a small place. You have to have enough ego to say, I'm worth defending.
Yeah.
That said, listen, social positioning is not self-defense. And, saying I'm the toughest dude on the block or, nobody messes with me because I'm so awesome is not self-defense. That's defense of the ego, which I would argue is probably about as far from what Jesus asks us to do as Christians as can be. Mm-hmm. So what I always say is that when you put the gun on, you must take the ego off. You have to recognize that you now have any fight you get into is a gunfight because you bring the gun. Now, you may not use the gun, but the gun is present. And so you can't at any point say, oh, it's okay, I can get into a confrontation with this guy, because you have to recognize that can turn into a gunfight in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the big things that you have to be able to do as a self-defender is to be able to put to death your ego and to say, hey, look, man, I'm sorry. This is, it's something that drives home to me. I have a friend, Jack Clemens is his name, and Jack is an absolute mountain of a man. And he did club security for a number of years, and he talks about what he calls his my bad 20, that when you're out there in the world that you need to have $20 folded up and stuck somewhere, that if you offend somebody, you can go, hey, my bad, man, let me buy you a drink. Hey, my bad, let me get out of this by being nice, by shaking a hand and saying, hey, you're right, I spilled your drink, my bad, or I looked at your lady and that offended you, I'm sorry, let me make it up to you by, buying your appetizer or whatever. And putting to death that ego so that you don't get into fights you don't need to get into.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we just don't do very well, honestly, in a lot of corners of the Second Amendment community. And I wish we did better, because when I moderate comments online or I see people, on Facebook or whatever, and they seem to really enjoy the confrontational aspect of I carry a gun so I can be a jerk.
Yeah. yeah, absolutely. I deal with that a lot as well. And there's been a lot of times where I have backed down, sometimes even in front of my family, which is even harder to do. But, it's
some days, it is.
Well, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like I'm teaching my kids to have self-esteem, self-respect. But, Jesus taught us, that we're supposed to treat other people, consider others better than themselves. I think who was that? Apostle Paul that said that?
Yeah.
And it's like there's got to be some kind of a balance in there on protecting yourself.
For sure.
Talk about the balance.
Well, I mean, so there's a big difference here between the social aspect of life and the self-defense aspect of life. Not that they're separate issues, but there's a distinction here, and it's an important distinction. So, when you say consider others better than yourselves, that's really a statement, an anti-ego statement. Your world is not self-centered. You're not the center of the universe. And that is, of course, I think, an important principle of self-defense. You're worth defending, but you are not the center of the universe, and you should not act like you are the center of the universe. And if you do act like you're the center of the universe, well, then you're going to have big problems in life. and you kind of earn what you get if you do that.
Yeah.
Now, that said, you have to maintain the understanding, and my real approach to that understanding is I am a child of God, and I am of great value and worth and dignity, and no one has the right to harm me. And And so I can defend boundaries without defending my ego. And those boundaries oftentimes are expressed like in ways that say, wait a minute, you can't hurt me. You don't have the right to try to hurt me because, again, I'm a bearer of the image of God. And those aren't against each other. They're two sides to the same coin. I'm a bearer of the image of God. I have no right to harm you. You're a bearer of the image of, you have no right to harm me. So we don't have a right to be damaged and hurt to each other. And so we have to be respectful and kind to one another. And that is, in my opinion, probably the best expression of how Jesus would have us to live, at least the way that I apply it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. And when you look at it, when you look at Christ's work on the cross, sometimes we act though like we're the center of the universe, and we're not. God is the center of the universe, but he still considered us, worth dying for. So it's like, wow, there's a lesson in humility right there.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And that is, I think, something that we have to maintain that balance. So that's where I think a healthy self-image comes in, and it's so important because it says, hey, I don't have to lord over you simply because I am confident enough in who I am that I'm okay. And I don't need your approval in that, and I don't need to lord over you. And I think when we approach things from that perspective, it definitely makes us healthier emotionally.
Yeah. So, John Correia from Active Self-Protection, have you arrived? Are you totally humble?
Humility is the greatest of my many qualities.
Well, John, here's what I'm learning personally is it's like the older I get, the wiser I get, okay? The more I know about myself. But, as you go through life and you get, what the world sees as successes, it's like, oh, I got this book published or this radio show, do this, do that. It's like it becomes more difficult to be humble. And sometimes I'll just catch myself thinking, oh, man, I should win a Pulitzer Prize for this, So for me...
Jesus is pretty lucky to have you.
Well... Exactly. But then something will happen, and I'll find myself thinking the most terrible, vile thoughts, about another person or something, or my kids will say something. It's like, well, Dad, that's not really what you should be saying, is it?
Yeah. Well, and I think that as we mature as Christians, when you're closer to the Lord, you do also see kind of your own shortcomings in more significant ways. And I think that is kind of part and parcel and isn't something that we should be proud of. And of course, I don't think we are, because it shows us our own mortality. And there's that idea of, memento mori, right? Remember thou art mortal. And this is always an important thing to remember. I have feet of clay. I am certainly imperfect in every way. And I think that humility says I could be just as much at fault in this particular issue as this guy is maybe at fault. And so I don't have to get my way here. And that's where that humility comes in. And I say, man, you're important too. How can I, say I'm sorry? How can I do the things that I need to make sure that we're both okay here? And I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think that's, from what I'm seeing, at least, where I'm practicing, at this dojo, they seem to have a good handle on that. It's like this is just like our firearm. It's a tool of last resort, and
yep.
So I really like that. John, we're about out of time for this segment, but I'd like to bring you back for the next segment. And one of the things I've been doing is I've been juxtaposing the state of Michigan, where I'm at, to whatever state they're in, and just comparing gun laws, concealed carry laws, and, not that it's a competition, okay, because I would never pick a fight with Arizona gun laws, because, you guys are doing okay over there. But when we come back...
Yeah, best in the nation.
Okay. All right, now there's some pride right there. All right. Okay.
There it is.
All right, folks, we got a 2-minute break here. While we are away, go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/MidwestTactical, and then go to CenterShotGunRange.com and see where they're all about. Check out CenterShot Indoor Gun Range, where it's always a perfect 70 degrees. This is Skip Correia on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Correia on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Correia Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Correia.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/MidwestTactical and protect your family now. Would you like to take your tactical and marksmanship training to the next level? If the answer is yes, you need to check out CenterShot Indoor Gun Range just south of Grand Rapids, conveniently located off US 131. CenterShot is one of the most advanced firing ranges in Michigan. CenterShot firing lanes have nearly 100 customizable shooting programs to make you better no matter what your skill level. Our advanced lanes allow a more immersive training experience to enhance your senses. Controlled lighting and target movement mean that you get the best practice and most fun out of CenterShot Indoor Gun Range. Memberships are available for as low as $150. CenterShot also offers a 10% discount to U.S. military veterans. So, no matter what the weather, hot, cold, or in between, CenterShot Indoor Gun Range is always a perfect 70 degrees. This is where I train every week, and so should you. Find out more by going to CenterShotGunRange.com or call them at 616-371-7468. Stay safe, and I'll see you at CenterShot Indoor Gun Range. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. We are speaking today with John Correia from Active Self-Protection, a totally egoless, humble-filled man. So, John.
Wow. Wow.
So, well, you know, the thing is, anyone who knows me, they know me, and I know better than to pretend, right? And, you know, I'm sure, you know, if we were to ask, you know, maybe your wife or your kids, is John Correia perfect? we would find out, right? And it's the same with all of us.
Yeah, you'd find out in a hurry, and the answer is no.
All right. Well, John, let's compare now Arizona gun laws with Michigan gun laws. You know, Michigan tends to be kind of middle of the road, but I always hear these great things about Arizona gun laws. So why are Arizona gun laws so incredibly fantastic?
Well, you know, I always tell folks that the Brady campaign gives a score every year to every state in the union, and in their scheme of things, a higher score is better because that's a higher level of gun control. Arizona every year gets a 0. We are literally the bottom of the heap. We almost got a negative score from them a couple of years ago. and I would have rejoiced in that, but unfortunately, we had a bill that got vetoed.
Oh.
So, Arizona, when you talk about the purchase of firearms, the ownership of firearms, we are among the freest states in the union. Everything's legal here. Body armor's legal. Suppressors are legal. You can own full auto if you can get them, through the National Firearms Act stuff. There's no registration. There's no licensure. Of course, you go buy a firearm through a federal firearms licensee. You have to go pass fill a 4473 out, pass a background check. That's federal. However, if you have an Arizona CCW, you're already background checked, and so they don't even run the NICS at that point. They just put a copy of your CCW with your application and file it. Mm-hmm. You have private sales are perfectly legal, so face-to-face private sales between individuals are legal, and the government doesn't get involved in that. Open carry of handguns, completely legal for those 18 years old and up. 18 years old and up in a private party transaction can buy handguns and long guns. And at 18 years old, you can purchase a handgun. You can't from a federal firearms licensee, but you can from a private party, and you can use it. You can carry it. So openly, not concealed, unless you're active duty military. If you're active duty military, you can get a CCW in Arizona and carry concealed.
Oh, wow.
So in terms of carry of firearms, we were the first modern state to go constitutional carry. We were the first state in the union. Vermont and Alaska have always been constitutional carry for their entire history. Mm-hmm. So when I say modern state, I mean we're the first folks in the modern era to go from shall issue to constitutional carry. I think there are 16 states now. We were the third and the first modern one. In 2009 or 10, we went to constitutional carry, and that's been a raving success. That's had no negative repercussions at all. We do still issue a CCW in Arizona for reciprocity, for background check, and all those things. I have one. It's a very easy process. Basically, any firearms training whatsoever, and pass a background check, and you can receive your Arizona CCW. It's good for 5 years. It's got 37 states worth of reciprocity, and that the only places that you can't carry in Arizona are schools, courthouses, federal buildings, secure area of airports. And a school here is defined as 12th grade and under, public or private. So I've been working with my legislature a little bit to try to get an enhanced permit here that gives us K-12 schools. So far, I haven't found any sponsors who are willing to take that on because they don't feel like it's the right time. But, I'll keep trying.
Yeah.
But it's great here. You don't, anybody who's not a prohibited possessor, smoke them if you got them. If you bring a handgun into the state, you can carry it. I don't care if you got your permit or not. The only place you can't carry in Arizona without a permit, basically, is any establishment that serves alcohol for consumption on the premises. So a bar, a restaurant, a place like that where you can, order a beer or a mixed drink or a glass of wine and drink it there. You have to have a permit in order to carry in those locations. And you can't drink if you aren't carrying.
Yeah. So you got all that, and it's warmer? That's
well,
not fair.
Yeah, so it's a dry heat, but so's an oven, okay? And so Arizona's an interesting place, though, because we also have, when people think Arizona, of course, they think Phoenix, which is in the middle of a desert and is 8 months of the year is the best weather in America. It's gorgeous here. Right up until the end of April, it starts getting warm. It's in the 90s right now. Not right now, but, every day now. And that's warm. It's not hot yet because the humidity is so low. But it's getting warm. Really, June, July, and August are miserable here, and half of May is kind of miserable, and half of September is kind of miserable. So,
yeah,
in Phoenix. That said, Phoenix isn't the only place in Arizona. You go an hour north of Phoenix into Prescott and North Sedona, Flagstaff, those areas. You have the largest contiguous pine forest in the world in the Coconino National Forest. Beautiful weather up there. They get snow. They actually have 4 seasons up there. It's kind of ridiculously expensive to live, but so there's lots of different climates in Arizona, but the affordable living is either in Phoenix or Yuma or Tucson, which do get a little warm in the summer.
So is Arizona still accepting applications for residency, or is it a closed state?
We welcome all freedom-minded people to come to Arizona. It's like many other places, we're getting a lot of folks out here from California, for instance, and from a political landscape, if that really matters to you, Arizona is ever so slightly right-leaning, but not heavily right-leaning, pretty libertarian in some ways. We're kind of hard to peg right now. The land of Barry Goldwater, which was for the longest time very, very right-leaning, isn't so much anymore. A lot of Californians moving out here because if it's too expensive. And they tend to not lean so hard right. So, it's an interesting time. But, of course, we welcome all people who want to experience the freedom of Arizona to come and experience it.
Well, it definitely does sound free. I'm listening to you give the synopsis there. Michigan, boy, we tried like the dickens to get constitutional carry passed. And, we had bills sponsored and brought up, and they died in committee. So we're still trying for that, but we have a fairly anti-gun governor as of our last election. So I think it's going to be another 3-4 years before we can even revisit that again, which is a shame. And we also have pistol registration, which it just frustrates me to no end. Because we used to have something called a safety inspection for pistols. You'd buy a pistol, and then you had to bring it to your local cop shop so they could inspect it, look at it to make sure it was safe. And then they'd write down the serial numbers and then register it. And we called them on that. We said, this is just a veiled registration, pistol registration. You guys shouldn't be doing this. We would like to get that repealed. And so, politics being, as they are, they said, you're right. You're absolutely right. This is nothing more than a veiled registration plan. So let's take off the veil and we'll just call it pistol registration now. So that one kind of backfired on us, but we gave it the college try. I think probably as far as pistol-free zones, we've got more pistol-free zones than you do. We're still trying to get rid of some of those. But it's going to be probably another 3 years before we can, try again to upgrade, the Michigan concealed carry laws. As far as constitutional carry, John, I hear two schools of thought on that, two attitudes. The one is some people will say, you can't let people carry guns without any kind of training. They'll go out, they'll be shooting the wrong people, they won't know the laws, all of that stuff. And the other one is, hey, this is your, God-given human right, and, you shouldn't have to have a permit anyways. So where do you fall along those lines?
I think experience has shown us here in Arizona that constitutional carry is wonderful. There is literally zero problem with it. That the people who generally carry, then what it does is rather than force them into a state-mandated class, which I know you as a trainer know, those classes tend to cater to the lowest common denominator.
Oh, gosh,
and they tend to just be really not any kind of valuable actual training. So instead, with constitutional carry, then people have to go and look for decent training, and so then I can teach the kind of class that I want to teach. And in fact, the class that I teach to get a concealed carry permit here in Arizona, I call it the class I wish I was taught for my CCW, which I got mine back when we were still shall issue, and there was an actual course that Arizona mandated, an 8-hour course for the CCW. And it was substandard. It was inadequate. And so now I teach students what I really wish that I would have been taught when I was getting my CCW. So I think it does those things. I think what it removes, and I actually am okay with this, the only thing it removes is, when you get somebody who's charged with a crime, say they were doing something bad, they get pulled over by the cops, and they got a bunch of drugs in the car or whatever, and then the guy's got guns on them too. Well, then they go, aha, now I have one additional charge of carrying a concealed firearm without a permit, or carrying a firearm without a permit. Well, guess what? I've already got all these other charges that I'm going to charge these guys with. That's just a minor annoyance, but it also then would add multipliers because in most states, For some reason, the gun is a magic talisman that adds severity to a crime unless the gun is used. So it really has not given us any problems whatsoever in terms of who's carrying a gun. If you misuse a firearm, you still get charged with misuse of that firearm. You're still accountable to the law, even if you don't have a training requirement from the government to know the law. So you're still required to know it. The way that I equate it to people is, I'm gonna step off the reservation here a minute, head way out into left field. Okay, so just bear with me. And my argument is, I don't believe that driver's licenses are valuable for the same reason that I don't believe CCW permits are valuable, because the standard that we hold to in the United States is so low to get that permit, to get that driver's license, that we don't ensure any significant level of competence. Now, I'm going to tell you that not too long ago, Skip, I was in Detroit for an event, and I got to experience Michigan drivers.
And I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of all Michiganians.
And I also got to experience the unique joy of a Michigan left turn.
Oh, okay.
and so, which is the oddest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah. For those who have never been to Michigan, in order to make a left turn in most of Detroit, you have to make a right turn and a U-turn, which seems a bit odd to me. But that level of training that is required, you said, well, at least you've passed a test that you have a basic modicum of skills, but those don't seem to make anybody actually better drivers. That doesn't seem to give anybody any significant level of competence. They have to continue on to actually train in order to become competent. So same thing with a firearms permit. With a CCW, the ridiculously low level of training that is required does not make for a high level of proficiency. And so it is simply a government licensing scheme, which in my opinion tends to be classist because it preys on the poor, who then have to take time off from work and pay for training and then pay for the license. And so when you add all those expenses up, it becomes an undue burden on people of low economic stature. And I also think that it actually unfairly impacts people of color because they tend to be less trustful of government and have more problems getting access to those services, particularly in urban communities. So I think that it unfairly burdens the poor and it unfairly burdens ethnic minorities in the U.S. Because I'm kind of that classic old fat white guy, right? So I am a middle class white male. So can I pay $150 to go to a class? Yeah, I can afford that. Can I afford the 200 rounds or 100 rounds of ammunition it's going to take me to pass that class? Yes. Can I afford the day off from work? Yes. Can I pay for, fill out the form and pay for it and send it off to the government? Yes, I can do all those things and get the fingerprint card and all that stuff. But some of my friends who, have less education than I do and less economic opportunity than I do and are struggling to pay their bills don't have that. So I just think that doesn't lead to negative outcomes because we don't have any significant uptick in misuse or misconduct involving weapons since we did institute constitutional carry. It allows more people who are not prohibited possessors to carry, and it gives them an economic incentive to find their own class and to become proficient in that way. So I just think it's a good thing, and I think that's why more of the nation is going that way, and I hope the trend continues.
Yeah. I agree with you, 100%. The training here in Michigan, it's 8 hours, it's 5 hours class time, 3 hours on the range. But the thing is, you're only required to shoot 30 rounds in order to get your Michigan concealed carry permit. And for me, I'll make them shoot 60 rounds, but there's no, baseline for proficiency, for accuracy. It's like, hey, you hit the berm, you're good, kind of a deal. And you don't really start getting proficient until you go beyond that and start with the, more advanced level classes, where you're shooting 500 rounds instead of, 30. But so I agree with you 100%, John.
Yeah, which is why I think getting that class out of the way and just so then people, when they do make their investment, they start making it in classes that'll actually help them. And I'm actually bucking here in Arizona for an enhanced permit that does require a fairly significant level of marksmanship, not super high, but requires a certification that you can shoot and that you have been trained to a fairly stout level, including some medical training and some legal training. So I don't know that we'll get it in the next legislature, but boy, I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get that. And that's something we tried. We failed so far, but we'll try again, the next governor. Before we go, let's talk about guns, because we got to talk about guns. Are you still shooting your red dot?
Oh, yeah. Carry a red dot every day. Dot is life, and I really think that red dot is the future of pistols.
All right. I think you're correct. I got, an RMR Trijicon sight. I've got it on my Smith & Wesson M&P Performance Center in 9mm full frame. And I started shooting that about a month and a half ago, I think. The one thing that I'm having trouble with, and maybe you can help me with this, is I have trouble with the presentation. Because I'm used to coming up, looking at the iron, finding the iron sights, which is pretty easy to find. But if I found with the red dot, if I don't have the exact presentation every single time, the dot is not inside the lens. How can you help me?
Yeah, and you're right. This is the problem, is that with a rifle optic, you have 4 points of contact on the gun, and so you have a much easier time bringing the dot up into your vision. With a pistol, you really only have 1 point of contact, two if you count each hand separately. So what you have to do is you really have to myelinate a consistent draw and presentation. And the way that I was taught to do that, my red dot coach is Scott Jedlinski from the Modern Samurai Project, and everybody calls him Jedi. And Jedi is my coach, and what Jedi taught me to do when I made the transition to the red dot is that you have to just work that presentation slowly, repeatedly, until your brain has myelinated a pathway that it puts the gun out there every time. And then this is what Aaron Cowan would call the magic red dot fairy, starts bringing you a red dot consistently.
Okay.
And so what that means is I put the gun in both hands and drive it all the way out straight, see the dot out in front of me, and then slowly bring that gun back to the place where my hands would join in the draw stroke, and then reset. And I did that 1,500 times before I pressed the trigger on a red dot. Then you do it forward. Come from the place where your hands join together, slowly, carefully bring the dot up, keep your focus on the threat the whole time or your target, and then when the red dot's up in the sight, great, now bring it back slowly. We do that another 1,500 times. That's 3,000 presentations. And then you start speeding that presentation up, because, of course, slow is slow, fast is fast, smooth is smooth. So you got to move from slow to fast.
Yeah.
And so another 1,500 presentations faster until you get that. Then you can do it from the holster, grab the gun, get it together, and then press out. Once you've done 4,000 or 5,000 presentations correctly, it'll start to happen on a much more consistent basis.
And what is the payoff, John?
The payoff is now you get a dot every time you put the gun out in front of you, and the red dot, when you know how to run it, is just as fast up close as iron sights. And anything past 7 yards, the red dot's the easy button. We were at the Rangemaster Advanced Handgun Instructor Certification a couple weeks ago, and we were shooting out B8 bullseye targets out to 25 yards. And with iron sights, man, a 25-yard shot on a B8 is no joke. With a red dot, it's an easy day. It's really no big deal when you're shooting a red dot. So it makes things an awful lot easier in spaces where you might need to. That 10-yard, 15-yard shot with iron starts to get to be a lot of work, especially when your eyes start going.
Yeah.
With a red dot, it's a piece of cake.
All right. Well, I've already begun that. I will escalate that, and I'll get my 3,000 repetitions in, and by the time I talk to you next, I want to be able to say, yeah, John, every time I pull that up, I've got my red dot right in the center of that lens. So that is my goal, okay?
Awesome, man. I'm sure you'll make it.
All right. Well, John, you are on your way to the NRA convention, so I wish you all good times there. I know it's going to be fun for you. Before you go, John, please tell us how people can find out about active self-protection.
Well, you can always go to our website, activeselfprotection.com. But, of course, the first place most people are going to meet me is on my YouTube channels. So if you go on your YouTube app and you search for Active Self-Protection, you'll see two channels will come up, one with a black profile pic, which is the main Active Self-Protection channel. Put up a new narrated video every single day there of a real-life self-defense encounter. And then Active Self-Protection Extra has a white profile pic on it, and there I teach self-defense skills of all kinds. We do legal discussions. We do dry fire training, live fire training, empty-handed skills, gear reviews, and all those stuff. So that's probably the best place for people to find.
Awesome. All right, John, thank you very, very much for being on the Home Defense Show, and have fun at the NRA convention.
Thanks, Skip. Always great to talk to you.
All right, folks, we got a 2-minute break. Check out firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and of course, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. When we come back in segment 4, I will tell you all about my wonderful things that I'm doing, my new book, and my red dots, and mushroom hunting. That is going to be fun. All right, this is Skip Correia on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Correia Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Correia.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Correia, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom. Skip, it's time for the Armed America Report. What do you have today?
All of us here at Frontlines of Freedom want our listeners to get trained and get armed in that order. We fully support the right to keep and bear arms for all law-abiding families, and we encourage you to find out about the laws governing use of deadly force in your state and follow them to the letter. And of course, don't forget to follow the rules of safety and common sense whenever you're carrying a firearm to protect the ones you love. What's the story this week, Colonel?
A convenience store clerk in Virginia faces voluntary manslaughter charges in connection with the fatal shooting of a robbery suspect, according to reports. Police said Jeremy Simmons, 31 of Richmond, used his personal handgun to fire at Joseph Harris, 43, when Harris tried to rob the store where Simmons worked. Harris fled the store, and Simmons followed him, firing more shots. Police learned of the shooting after finding Harris's body on the rear porch of a home. An investigation led them to Simmons, police said in a statement. Simmons also faces charges of discharging a firearm in public.
Thanks, Colonel. One of the many challenges in carrying concealed for personal protection is knowing when to shoot and when to restrain yourself. On the one hand, if you wait too long, then you may be killed by your attacker. On the other hand, if you rush things and make a bad call, then you could be charged with a crime. In this story, our armed citizen made two very important errors which lead directly to him being charged with manslaughter. One, he followed a fleeing felon. This is not a good idea. So many bad things could have happened. The felon could have ambushed and killed the citizen. The police could have seen a man chasing after another citizen with a gun and shot him simply because they didn't know the full story. The possibilities are endless. Most jurisdictions will not condone you shooting a fleeing robber while he is trying to get away, simply because you are no longer in imminent fear of death or serious bodily injury. Once the bad guy leaves, you are safe. Don't take the law into your own hands. And two, the armed citizen didn't call the police after the encounter. This looks very suspicious. You can't just shoot a robber and then go home and continue on with your life as if it never happened. The first person to call the police is generally considered to be the victim, simply because criminals flee the scene and do not call the authorities, whereas innocent victims call 911 and report the crime. In my opinion, this shopkeeper knew in his gut that he'd made a bad call, and he didn't want to face the music, so he didn't report it. Anyone who carries a gun for personal protection must know the laws of deadly force and follow them to the letter. And this educational process is ongoing since the rules can sometimes change. Part of being responsibly armed is having good judgment and knowing the law. This armed citizen did neither and is now paying the price for it.
That's an oops.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Correia. John Correia, Active Self-Protection. Go there. You need to be watching his videos every single day. They will help prepare you to protect your family and the ones you love. We'll have John on again and again and again. He's a true friend, and he is very, very knowledgeable. So, John Correia, Active Self-Protection. Check it out. All right, we are way over time today, but if you want to blame someone, blame John Correia. The guy, he just talks and talks and talks and talks. But, hey, what can you do when he's saying such great things? So you listen. I'm just going to launch right into next week. What do we have next week? We are going to have an author named Rick Weist. Rick Weist, yes, that's a Dutch name. He is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is CEO of the Flowerland stores in Grand Rapids. He has written a new book called Operation Rumination, Turning Back the Clock. This is an awesome, awesome book, and I was honored to help Rick in some small way in getting this book published. So, I'm excited about listening to Rick talk about his new book, Operation Rumination. You may remember a year ago, we spoke with Rick about his last book called I Just Wet My Plants. He is like the pun master. This guy is so funny, witty, very sharp. I'm learning a lot of things from Rick about physical fitness, about business, you name it. All right, I'm here on Amazon.com here. Let's read part of the description here on Operation Rumination. Statistics suggest that 7.3% of all living Americans have served or are currently serving in the military. Author Rick Weist delves into his own personal thoughts as one of the 92.7% who never served in the military. To understand better, he spends a year with veterans listening to their stories. In the process, he wrestles with the fact he never served and reflects on the freedoms he enjoys because of the service and sacrifice of others. Approaching the age of 60, he chooses a 2-mile stretch of beach to run, reflect, train, and ruminate. The goal was to voluntarily engage in a personal boot camp of sorts to meet the physical fitness requirements of a 17 to 21-year-old entering the Army. Run, push-ups, sit-ups. He corresponds with young men currently in boot camp that summer and visits with veterans of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan wars. He ruminates on what he learns as he trains, often culminating in sit-ups and push-ups next to a lighthouse on Pier Marquette Beach in Muskegon, Michigan. Folks, this book is just awesome, and Rick will be with me on May 25 at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range in Dorr, Michigan, along with Colonel Denny Gillum. It's an awesome book. I've read the book. It's incredible. These combat stories from these combat vets, man, they will just blow you away. These guys, they humble you with their stories of courage. Oh, what is that saying? Uncommon valor was a common virtue. That's the way these guys are. These combat vets, they rose to the occasion. They conquered Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan. Oh, man, they turned back the Chinese communists in Korea. And contrary to popular belief, they won every single battle in Vietnam. And now they're fighting off Islamic terrorists in the Middle East. These guys are awesome. You can't say enough good things about our American military fighting men and women. All right, we are way over time. I want to hear from you folks. Okay, send me emails, skipcorreia@hotmail.com, skipcorreia@hotmail.com. Give me your comments about the show. I know I'm doing good things simply because the show is growing and growing and growing. But I'd like to hear what you have to say, and I'd like suggestions as to what you'd like me to do in the future. So again, email me at skipcorreia@hotmail.com. All right, again, next week, Rick Weist. Check out Active Self-Protection on YouTube, John Correia. Of course, check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/MidwestTactical, and also Center Shot Indoor Gun Range at centershotgunrange.com. Well, okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Until next week, remember, your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember, God, family, country, in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Correia. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!